the True Print for Life podcast. I'm your host, Christina Vera Reed.
And I'm your co-host, Maylin and Thank you so much for returning and all for joining for the first time. We're so happy that you're here. So during the last episode, we actually talked about clearing the air, and we got a lot of feedback of how that resonated with so many people. People took a lot of takeaways and how they're going to apply that to their daily life. So we definitely thank you so much for the feedback, and we're excited. If you're listening for this for the first time, please let us know how you like it, because we cannot wait to hear for your feedback. So today, we're so excited. So today, with everything that's happening in the world, we have had to see a lot of people make changes. A lot of people have to pivot, the course of their life and what's going on in their life. So today the topic is it takes courage to change course, right? And that could be in your job, in your family, in your finances, and in your wellness. So Christina.
Yeah.
You ready for this?
I am ready.
Okay, so I know you have so many examples and you can share whatever you like, but can you share a time with us or an event in your life where you had to have so much courage to change the course of that event or life?
Well, I think this is like one of those loaded questions, because I feel like when you have to have the courage to change course, there's a whole mental process that I think you have to arrive to first. Like finding courage, especially as, I don't know, I feel like kids are super courageous. Yeah. Like babies, if you think about like little kids and just like, they will just jump off of a couch, won't think twice about it. They'll run up to strangers sometimes and just start having full-blown conversation. And it made me start thinking, like, just watching my own kids, and I'm just like, wow, he is so brave. And it's like, at what point do we start to lose courage? Like, I think we start to overthink and analyze and question. But little kids, like, they start off and they're just so courageous. Like, it's just in their nature to do bold things, to do things that they feel in the moment is the best idea, whether it is or not. They just roll with it. And I think as we get older, I don't know what exactly seeps in that our courage starts to dwindle. And not everybody, like some people still kind of move and operate with that, like, no parameters, no walls. But for most of us, including myself, I think courage is something that, I'm learning to dive and lean more into, but it wasn't always easy. And I think like even professionally, just to kind of start there, like, when we decided years ago, even before we really knew like what we wanted to do and how we wanted to make our impact on the world, like I knew I wanted to do something. And, I had this idea of just wanting to bring like really amazing women together and start some type of company. I honestly didn't know what the company was. I had a general idea. I knew who I wanted. I knew what key players I wanted to help me bring this idea to life. And I would say probably a year into that particular business, it just was not going well. And I was so bent on like, no, this has to work. Yes. Like, I was so set on the idea, and I was so set on, even the people that were involved at the time. And it got me to a place where, the mission and the vision of what I wanted to accomplish wasn't happening. But I was so stuck on the idea that I had to really say, like, am I willing to fail just because I can't let go of this idea? I can't really look at this from a different lens of, this might not be the move. These might not be the people. This might not be the right time. This might not be the right city. There's so many things that I, started to question, and I had to learn a lot. I think I went through a lot of unnecessary, like, heartache, stress, financial losses, from investing early on into something that I really just didn't have the courage to say, like, this isn't working. And we really need to just separate, and I need to go back to the drawing board.
Oh, this person isn't working, because sometimes it's not the idea. So I remember when you called me for this idea, and we didn't really know what it was going to be. And I was driving to New York, and I have my nephew. It was the first time by myself that I drove to New York in my little Honda. I was really excited, and I was driving with my nephew. to see my mom, and you call me, and I was like, oh, Christina's calling me, and you tell me about this amazing idea that you had. And I said, absolutely. Did I understand fully? No, not sure. But I was so excited with your excitement and your passion that I was like, yeah, whatever you're gonna do, I want to be part of it. So when I come back from New York, we'll sit and talk. And I remember that like it was yesterday, and that was over 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny because you and I weren't really like fully connected then.
We were not really close.
No, we were cool. We went through classes together. We had a lot of great dialogue. But even then, like, you know, how our friendship has evolved, even then it wasn't there yet. But yet you still trusted. Like, I don't know what this girl's talking about. But you were totally like, all right, let's meet about it when I get back. And, you know, and that even took courage. Sometimes saying yes to something and not fully knowing like all the details, but just being like, all right, cool, let's meet up, let's talk about it. And so I think that that's something that, you know, when I really came to terms with what I was doing and the fact that I wasn't making progress and it was becoming more of this like volatile situation, I knew then that I was going to have to separate from the initial idea. And that meant completely starting over. Like money was already invested. There was a name, there was a website, there was a logo, there was everything you would need to start a company. There were flyers. There was a Facebook page. You know, it's official when all of
there
those
were phases.
There was so many things, and I really had to look at the company, not from a personal like how I felt. And I think sometimes we get stagnant and we get stuck because our pride is in the way. I was more set on my ego and the fact that what would other people think. What would other people say? Like, oh, she started a business and she had to shut it down. And it was like, okay, but am I willing to sink alongside of this business, knowing that what I knew in the moment, finally, I had arrived to the conclusion, like, this is not it. This is not going to thrive. It was the wrong partnerships. It was the wrong, I mean, the whole looking back, there was just so much that was just not in alignment with what I really thought I wanted and how I was going about it. And I had to be okay with separating myself from all of that to really kind of step into what it was in my purpose and what it was that I was supposed to be doing. But I sat in that. I marinated in that for almost 2 years, essentially, because I was more like worried about what other people were going to say and what other people were going to think. And then part of it also, I thought I could fix it.
Yeah.
I could fix this.
Because we can fix everything.
Yeah.
Why won't we be able to fix this?
I could fix this. It's cool. Like, we're all just having a moment. It's not working out, but it could be fixed and I could turn it around. And that was just, you know, that was gremlin talk. Like, that wasn't really going to happen. And I had to have the courage to say, like, this is not working. The business failed, but that doesn't mean I'm a failure. That doesn't even mean the people who were initially involved, you know, were failures or bad people. It just wasn't the right recipe.
Right. It wasn't the right time. And I think sometimes our egos, right? Like we have egos and they have egos. And our egos are talking to us and their egos are talking to them. And sometimes those messages just kind of clash. And for me, what I admire about that moment was that there was really no blame. It was like, this is just not working. And regardless of what the other people or persons did, just to kind of move above it. Like we moved from that. Yeah. Now that some people sometimes still bring it up. I don't know why, guys. Let it go. It's cool, but we have moved from that. And I think we didn't take the time to really just dwell on that after the decision was made.
Yeah.
We're like, this happened. Did it suck? Yes, absolutely. Do we have to start over? Yes. What is going to be the new name of the company? Because the company is going to happen.
Right.
And I think that's what I loved about having the courage to be like, well, it was your name, so let's find a different name, maybe similar, but it's still coming from the name. And I had to have courage to stand up for you because I never did that before. So I think for me, it took a lot to be like, wrong is wrong or right is right, and this is not right, and having to stand up. So that's when I knew you were special. There was something special about you because I was like, I don't like this, and I am not, you know? And then like not to bring negativity because energy is so important. So I didn't want to
Yeah.
dwell on the negativity. I said, okay, this is what happened. How do we move on? And how do we do what we need to do? Because at the end of the day, it is bigger than us. And it wasn't about us. It was about the service we wanted to provide,
Right.
even though we don't know in what way. So the
Yeah.
name of a company don't matter. I don't even know that company is even working right now, is in existence. But, you know, we have changed courses after that as well.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think everything was necessary. There was
Yeah.
lessons that were learned, and not being attached to it, not being married to it, really helped for us to be where we are today.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it like one of the most like outside of what you just mentioned that I really learned in those beginning years of getting into business, because I didn't have an entrepreneurship background. And so a lot of what I've learned is kind of through like trial and error, like just being in the process, really just learning. And I think there is a lesson in everything. So when certain things fail, you know, it's not fully a failure because you did learn. And I think one of the biggest things I learned from that initial experience was, you know, how important it is to have things in writing, how important it is to have contracts and really, you know, fully understand how a business entity works. And, you know, even something as minute as registering like your paperwork with the state, whatever state you live in, there's a process for, you know, registering your business. And at the time I was like, oh yeah, like whoever, like, you know, just drop the paperwork off, not realizing like, no, it matters. Like making sure your name is on that paperwork, making sure like the addresses and all the things that really are associated with your business, your brand, like you need to know and be a part of all of that, at least in the beginning. And as growth happens, you know, you can create lanes and operating procedures. But if this is something you're really passionate about, something you really want to dive into, whether you work for a business or you are starting a business, I highly encourage you to know all facets of that business, of that company, because ultimately, like, if it's yours, it's yours. And you really need to know, like, how things work, how things operate. And, you know, essentially, like, especially if you have to separate and you have to dilute a company, there's a lot of things that are involved simply just alone with that.
And I, you know, being that I work at the Small Business Development Center for a while, I remember we used to say this to business partners that used to come in, and they laugh and they thought we were joking. I'm serious. The best time to make a deal is when you're happy, right? So if you are coming into a partnership with someone, you definitely want to do that paperwork, right? You want to make sure that besides the LLC or whatever format you choose to register your business in, that you also look at, okay, in this partnership, there's an agreement. So who owns what percentage do we own, right? How are the profits going to be shared? How the liabilities are going to be shared? What happens if something happens to one of us? What happens is I just get the lotto and I don't want to do this anymore, and I want, you know, to sell my part, or I want to be, you know, I want to buy you out, or you want to buy me out. Like, what does that look like? And this is a time, almost like a prenup, but this is the time, right? Like, you do this now when everybody's okay and calm, because at the time that there's a disagreement, or at the time that you may have to separate ways, because nothing is always perfect, then at that time you can make no agreements. At that time you're so heated, or you're upset because something happened, and you cannot think straight because now you're no longer calm. So at the start of any business, it's really important to have those paperwork, to have that. Because you just never know. No matter, you know somebody for 25 years and they will switch up on you like in a minute,
In a
right?
heartbeat. Please believe it.
You'll be like, who is you, right? So who are you?
Yeah, especially when there's money and there's business like,
even if it's $5.
yeah, I remember sitting here arguing with people years ago, and I'm like, we don't even have no money yet. We don't even have, you know, we're not even there, and we're already having like these minor. Like, and it was, and looking back, it was really a power struggle. It was really about like who gets the last decision and who makes the choice. It was just
whose
like,
name is gonna go first on the flyer.
it's just like silly things that, you know, to me, looking back, they are silly things, but to some people, that's just how they move and operate. So I think in business, and even in life, whoever you decide to partner with, if you think partnership is something you want, whether, like I said, in life or in business, really evaluate, what do you want out of that partner? You know, what do you want out of that business partner? What do you want out of that life partner? Because there has to be things, and I talk about this all the time in terms of non-negotiables. And, you know, the Christina entrepreneur here today, looking back, 12, 15 years ago when I first kind of started my toe in entrepreneurship is a completely different person in what I look for, how I move, the questions to ask. And so I would encourage anybody listening, like I didn't know this back then, but we stumbled across the SBDC many years into this process. Every state has a small business development center.
And
And
almost countries too, all
yeah,
over the world.
and that's free business consulting to help you guide you through the processes of starting a business.
Yeah.
And they'll, you go online, you just type in your zip code, SBDC, Small Business Development Center, put in a zip code. It'll show you any centers that are in your area. Set up a consultation. It doesn't hurt. Even if you feel like I got everything in check, it doesn't
Check
hurt.
it.
Yeah, get an audit, get a third perspective, get another set of eyes. And then, if you have a little extra money, you might even want to consider, after you've met, use all the free resources first.
Absolutely.
Because those are there for you and they're already paid for. And as an entrepreneur or person in business, every dime truly does count. And, then eventually looking at like legal representation, consulting with an attorney to really make sure that your things are in order.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's about, is just making sure that your things are in order, that everything that you have presently lined up is set up in a way that you do have a viable business, and that you don't have to run into some of those discretions, as you mentioned earlier, later on.
Yeah, and there's a difference. So I think we want to make sure that we explain. So the Small Business Development Center, SBDC, it's free. The government kind of give this back. I think when Barack Obama was president, it was a way to give back to the entrepreneurs, right? So that is paid by the government. They advise you. So advising means you come in, they'll check things, they'll give you advice. They're not coaches. So there's a difference. So when you're looking for like a coach or a strategist, that's a little bit different, because like we're coaches, we're consultants. We get in the trenches with you. We'll come to the business. We get pretty hands-on. We're advising is like, okay, I'm here to talk to you. I'm here to point in some things. Yeah, which is amazing because you're getting that for free. So we always send people there first to kind of like, for those that want to get that first, like, that have money, whatever reasons, they have classes online, how to start your business, how to grow it. There's many things. Once you do that, if you're like, okay, I got that, and now I'm ready to elevate or do something different, then we're happy. If you want to talk to Christina or myself, we're happy to help you with that next step. Or if you already went through all of that, you got the check, and now it's time for you to elevate, right, your business, then definitely have a conversation with a coach. We have coaches, we have mentors, and that's why now we wish we had done them earlier. But now we went through all of that, so now we can help you. So definitely use us, because we're here to help you to kind of avoid some of the headaches that we had to go through in the beginning to help you now.
Absolutely. And I think it's all learning and sharing, as you said, because I think even going into like personal situations, I think, to the courage to change, in a relationship, I think there's a lot of compound factors to that. I think if you've been blessed and fortunate to never have a complex relationship, please do a class, write a book, share with us your secrets.
Please send us a message. We want you on the podcast. You're next.
Right. We got to interview you, because many of us, including myself, it has not been, an easy road. A lot of how I feel in business, it took me time to also develop that mindset in relationships. And, I'm very blessed. I'm married now, and, but my husband and I, we've known each other 20 years, but we've only been married 7 years. And, at the beginning of our relationship, we took a huge break. I mean, a huge break. He was off, finding himself. I was off finding myself, even found myself in another long-term relationship, and, halfway into that, I knew it wasn't the right fit, but I was already committed. I already had, another child, and I felt really like...
And you could fix it.
Yeah, I could fix it. I've always had like, I could fix this mentality, and I'm working on that. Like, no, like certain things you just can't fix, and certain things are not my job to fix. Right. Like, it's not my job to fix anyone. It's never our jobs to fix people. And I think we fall in love with the idea of people's potential, of a business potential.
Say that.
And then it's like, but no, you have to either accept a person. Now we can look at potential as like, okay, I'm cool if this were to happen, but if it's not gonna happen, am I still cool? And I think for me, I've always kind of been in this bubble, like, okay, the potential is there, I could help with this, I could do that. But going back to what I was talking about earlier, like, but the non-negotiables were never there. They were never there. And you know, and I feel very blessed because I feel like even through that hard period of my life of being, you know, in relationships that weren't fruitful, that weren't, you know, healthy relationships, a lot of good did come out of that, you know, and I'm blessed, you know, to have my children. I'm blessed to, you know, have these new, you know, additional relationships that came out of certain situations and scenarios. But honestly, like that situation, that relationship dragged out much longer
They
than it
needed
needed
to.
to. But I like I said, I just didn't have the courage. I didn't want to face what were people say, what were people gonna think. And now thinking back, like, if I hadn't left that situation, if I hadn't came to terms with we are just not compatible, we're not good for each other, then I wasn't opening up the space that I needed to kind of reconnect with my husband. And you know, he wasn't my husband then, but you know, God knew that one day he would be my husband. But I needed to clear the space and I needed to clear my mind and knowing that I deserved better and I deserved more. And it took me some time to really like to understand that and quantify it. But you know, a lot of it was just mindset of just having the courage to be like, I'm done with this drama. I don't want toxicity. I can't be with someone that I don't trust, someone that doesn't respect me in my presence or even in my absence. And those were non-negotiables for me.
Right.
And you know, and that never really existed in that relationship, but I went along with it because certain parts of it was exciting and certain parts of it was even like, I don't know what it was, but some of those toxic traits that I look back on, I'm like, that was all red flagged, and but I still went along with it. And finally, I think when, you know, we both had the courage to say, okay, this is done. Let's just move on. Let's create the space. You know, now we've gone on to be married to really awesome people and have really created a life that still takes work. Some days I have to be real courage, have a lot of courage, and I say how I feel and do, but you know, it's a respect factor, and I can never be in a business relationship or a personal relationship with someone who didn't have integrity, who didn't have respect, who didn't have, you know, the fight in them to really give our business or our personal relationship what it really needs to be fruitful.
Yeah, that's thank you for that.
welcome.
I appreciate you sharing that. It did take a lot of courage, I think, to know that you deserve better. And for everybody listening, you could be in a situation, whether it be your job and a family, you know, your bank account, your wellness, and you're like, yeah, like I don't. This is not where I should be. This doesn't feel right, but I don't know how to get out of this. I don't know how to walk away. I don't know how to increase my finances. I don't know how to get in shape. I mean, like I know, but I don't know what steps to take. So there's so many things that you are right now facing, and wherever you are right now, I want to tell you that there is hope. Because sometimes we feel so overwhelmed by what we're looking at that we're not looking past that. It is sometimes so painful and so overwhelming that you're like, is this going to be the rest of my life? Because at that moment, this is probably all you're telling yourself, this is going to be the rest of my life. And it's not. So we have Christina as a beautiful example of someone that overcame business, you know, transitions and change, a whole new thing. And then also relationships.
Yeah.
And, you know, that thank God that she saw the light because she has a beautiful life right now. And then, you know, we developed some questions that you want to ask yourself. And I'm going to go through this and I'm going to share my personal example. But I want to give you some ideas of how do you, you know, get that courage, right, to really start making a change that you have to make. Because like you should is the one that you have to make in order to come out of wherever you are right now. So I will ask yourself, right? Am I happy with this situation? Because maybe you are happy like this. Maybe some of us are happy in dysfunction, right? So ask yourself, am I happy here, you know, with this job, family? Am I happy with my bank account balance? Am I happy with the way that I look, that I feel right now in my body? and ask yourself that, not what people think, because we really don't care what
Right.
people don't pay your bills. So let's just put them to the side for a minute. So unless you're an investor in our company or you're paying my bills, your opinion is not welcome. Okay, so am I happy with that? So then if you are happy, awesome. So let's ask ourselves, I'm happy with this. Is there anything else that I can do more of to really like make this better? So if you're in a relationship right now, and I know a lot of people that are married and they're happy, but you know, can you make it better? Can you spend more time together? Can you be more present with each other? If you have children, can you do a date night every week, right? Can you make sure that that's what you're doing? If you're at work and you're doing well, can you train somebody else, right? Does that give you fulfillment? Like you being a mentor to somebody else. How do you give back
Yeah.
when you're doing well at your job? And then health and wellness, you're doing really good. Help somebody out. Is there a friend that you're like, they need help? Sometimes you don't say you don't look good. You say, hey, I'm going for a walk. Do you want to come with me? This is what I'm doing, sharing what you're doing, health and wellness with your friends that may just need a little push to be healthy. But it's not about the looks. It's about how you feel and being healthy, especially with everything happening right now. I just want us to be healthy and take care of our bodies. So if anything invades our body, we can fight it and we can win. And we can only do that if we're taking care of our mind, body, and soul.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
So definitely do that. So let's say that you're not happy, because that could be the next thing. You're looking at your situation right now. You're in a marriage and you're like, or in a relationship or a job or whatever. And you're looking at it and you're like, it looks good from the outside to people. Because sometimes people will look at your situation and the grass is greener and they don't know what's going on in your house, right? So when I was, married, I remember my mom used to be like, wow, people really envy you and they don't know what you go through. Or people really look at you and they're like, look, she has it all. And they have no idea the things that you have to do or the things that you have to go through. So my mom always used to tell me, I'm like, nobody's envying me, first of all. She's like, they are. and that made me think, not because I don't share my personal stuff on Facebook, like I'm very private in a way that I'm not going to tell you all my business. I have specific people for that. I don't need like pity. But, I do have, a therapist. So if you are not happy where you are, you definitely need professional help, right? Because having a therapist is really important for your mind, because your friends, families, they cannot give you the professional help that you need. They can listen to you, they can hug you, they can feed you, but you need professional help to help you navigate what you're feeling and maybe how to move on from that situation. So I looked at my marriage and I was like, I wanted to stay married. I hate divorces, God knows. I think I don't like them at all. But I wasn't happy. And I wasn't happy, and I couldn't even tell you, because at the moment I didn't know why I was unhappy. I just had this feeling inside that I felt like I wasn't being loved the way that I needed to be loved, and I didn't understand why, because in my mind I was successful in this area of business, right? We were helping so many girls and so many women, but I was feeling this sadness and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know the void that I was feeling. So it took time and courage to really look at it and be like, why is this happening, right? Can I fix this? And in my mind, I could. I told myself, I'm going to go to therapy because this is me, right? Like, I really believe it was me. So I needed to do what I needed to do to fix it. And I went to therapy, and through the course of things came out, and it wasn't me, right? Like, am I perfect? No. There are things that I could have done. Absolutely. Like, we all have that. There's not a day, I think, that doesn't go by that I'm like, well, could I have done this better? Yes. And then I have to tell myself, yes, I could have done that better, but that other person could also have done it, could have put in their work too. Because in a marriage and a partnership, it's just not one person. It takes two people to make something work. And if you're the only one that wants to save something, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not going to work. If your other person doesn't want to save it, or the other person doesn't want to put in the work, if they're not willing to sacrifice, like you're willing to sacrifice, as much as you want to save that, it is not for you. And that was it took all of me to really realize that I had to separate, because I didn't want to. I prayed every day. I did all the things. Anything that I was asked to do, I did. Because I thought if I did everything, if I prayed hard enough, God would listen. And anytime I really prayed on it, God would be like, God would give me the worst answer. It was not the answer I wanted. And sometimes when you're in a situation and you're asking for prayer and you're asking for an answer, right? You're going to get an answer, and you have to be ready to listen to the answer, because it may not be what you want. It may be like you really need courage to walk away from this, because in a way, and I'm, guys, I'm spiritual. God is protecting you from something that you don't even know. And it took all of me to really, really make the decision. Like, I have to separate. Like, I have to make this decision. I didn't want to be the one. I really didn't. And I think for many guys, they never want to be the one that file either. So guys don't want to be the one that file, because then they can say, well, she filed, but they're not saying why she filed, right? So I felt like I hated it that I had to leave, right? To leave this relationship. And then I also hated it that I had to be the one to have the courage to file, because if we can fix it, and then why are we staying together? If we're not going to sacrifice and make this work, whether it be business or relationship, then why stay and suffer and then build this hostility? And then it is worse, because if you stay in a place where you're not loved or wanted, and the person is not willing to sacrifice for you, what you're going to create is this resentment. And resentment is really like, it's hard to live with that. It's hard to give and prosper from a place of resentment.
Yeah.
And in my hardest days, my biggest prayer has always been, don't let me have a bitter heart. No matter what I go through, like, don't let me be that bitter peaceful. Because I know a lot of bitter divorcee people, right? Like, it was like 25 years later and they're still mad. And I'm like, I don't want to be that person, right? And I saw it growing up. And that is the thing that I never wanted to have. So having the courage to be like, okay, we have to move on. This is really painful, and it may suck for a while, and it will. And then, okay, so now that we have to make this decision, what do I need to start, doing? So if this is not going to work and you have to file and you have to separate, whether it be business or a relationship, then I had to figure out, how do I do self-love, right? So how do I nurture myself? How do I surround myself with people that truly love me, that will remind me every day that I am enough, that will remind me that I am loved, that will remind me that I'm not alone, that will not let me drown in the pain and the sorrow. Like, they were really there to pick me up. And, I don't like to cry in front of people. Like, I know this is a word. Like, oh my gosh.
I cry all the time. Show me the right Hallmark commercial. I'm going to be like, that was so beautiful. But you're right. You do not cry.
I do not. So when I cry, she loses it, because she's like, whoa.
I don't know what to do. I mean, everybody should cry. Like, I feel like this whole stigma behind, like, don't cry, toughen up. I'm like, no, let that out, because walking around with built up emotions, that's also super not healthy. But don't be like a super crybaby like me. Like, I try to have some control. Have a balance.
But I cry on movies, and if I want, like, I put songs that I know are gonna trigger the tears, because sometimes I need to let it out. But I really, I just don't like crying, because I like being in a really happy place. So I did have to accept, right? You do have to accept where you are and acknowledge that the pain is there. Figure out, how do you nurture your mind, your soul, and your body, to make sure that you take care of yourself and you don't do more damage, right? Because you're already going through something, and then you're gonna not take care of your body, you're doing more damage that then you have to fix. So making sure that you start doing the things, maybe, change the focus a little bit from this happened to me to this happening for me. So, if God is closing this door in my life, even though I don't see the other door that people keep saying there is, there has to be a different way, right? So, believing without seeing. So I had to start having this crazy faith that even though this part of my life was changing, I was closing this chapter in my life, I wasn't closing my life. It felt like I was. I'm not going to lie. It felt really heavy, it felt very dark. But I had to remind myself, this is not the end of my life. I'm not a failure. This relationship failed.
Right.
And what can I do better the next time? Because I still believe in love. I love love. Love is amazing. I do. I think love is beautiful. And I feel like, just like businesses, if one doesn't work out, we make another one until we find the one that truly works. Same thing with love. If this didn't work out with this person, then it wasn't meant to be. It did what it had to do for that period of time. So I am also grateful. So now that I'm looking back at this experience, one of the things you need to find is gratitude and what happened. So what lessons did I learn, and how can I apply that for the future? And how do we not make the next person pay for what other people did to you? So it's very important that you start thinking of how you're going to be, your best self, and grow, and not make other people pay for what other people did. Don't make your new boss pay for what your old boss did to you, right? Same thing with a relationship. So I definitely started taking care of myself, being more mindful, being more present, and then shifting my focus into like, okay, I'm not about to prove people wrong. I want to prove myself right. I want to make all my goals come true. I want to make sure that everything that I'm dreaming about creating, even starting new dreams, because the old dreams are no longer there. So creating new dreams and manifesting new things, I want to focus on that. So definitely focus on the positive of things and being thankful. And then stop. So a couple of things you want to stop doing in this process is stop checking out people's social media. I'm going to tell you that right now. I literally block people. Like, I don't see things from my exes. I don't, unless somebody points it out to me, and thank you for that, guys, but don't have to anymore. But I don't follow their social media. I try not to stay in contact with that, because I think you do need to separate yourself, and you need to start, right? So in our old businesses, we don't keep in touch with the people that no longer worked out in a business. We're like, we bless and we release you. So it's important for you to bless the person, release them, and move on. Whether it be in a business, whether it be in a relationship, whatever it is, stop doing that. Stop thinking of the negative things that happen or that could happen. And like I said, focus on the positive, because at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about what happened. It's the past. There's nothing that could be changed. The only thing you really have control on is the present. Not even the future. You have control on the present and what's happening right now.
And like Beyonce said, the best revenge is your paper. So that's, when Beyonce said that, I felt that in so many ways. She's like, best revenge is your paper. I said, I know that's right, Beyonce. I bet you won't catch me out here slipping, God willing. But yeah, it's just, so back to your point, I think it's just, digging deep, even when you don't really know what you're searching for, but courage, going back to, you mentioned still believing in love and still believing in things, and, digging deep. And I think that's what it's all about. So today's message really is about, tapping into that courage to change course, even when it's one of the hardest decisions you've had to make. And even if it's not that super even hard of a decision, just really being like, why am I holding on? What if it's that simple to change, then change. Yeah. And not necessarily, being so committed to something which is more ego driven than it is results driven. So going back to your why, what's your motive? What's your goal? What are your priority areas? What are your core values? And essentially realizing that, you deserve all of the good things that the world has to offer there in business and in life, but you have to create, the habits and the intention to make that happen. So with that being said, we're super thankful to have had you today listening to us, and make sure that you continue to follow us, share, like our podcast. But ultimately, as we always say, it's bigger than you.